Hello and welcome to the International Writers Festival at Mishkenot Sha'ananim, supported by the Jerusalem Foundation. This event with Maxim Biller is held in collaboration with the Konrad Adenauer Foundation to mark 60 years of diplomatic relations between Germany and Israel. And we would also like to thank the Goethe Institute in Israel for supporting this event. And I'll say this in Hebrew as well. And we'll be talking about multilingualism. שלום וברוכים הבאים לפסטיבל הסופרים והסופרות הבינלאומי במשכנות שאננים בתמיכת הקרן לירושלים. האירוע הינו בשיתוף קרן קונרד אדנאואר לציון 60 שנים של יחסים דיפלומטיים בין גרמניה לישראל. תודה גם למכון גתה על התמיכה באירוע. And my name is Yaakov Herskovitz. I'm a scholar of Hebrew and Yiddish literature, and I'm so happy to be joined today by Maxim Biller, even if remotely, but hopefully the online format will allow more people to attend. So hello, Maxim.
Hi, Yaakov.
I'll introduce you briefly and we'll just get into a conversation that I'm looking forward to. Maxim Biller was born in 1960 in Prague and moved to Germany with his parents at the age of 10, where he lives to this day. Writer of dozens of books, writes for newspapers, children's books, a musician. There's so much that one can say, so I'll just focus on what was translated into Hebrew. Three books we have thus far, and I'll say thus far because I hope Mama Odessa, the book we'll mainly be discussing today, I hope, comes out in Hebrew soon. But three books appeared in Hebrew thus far of the many books Maxim Biller has written. Esra, which first appeared in 2003 in German and in Hebrew in 2015, translated by Michael Dack. Im Kopf von Bruno Schulz in 2013 in German, and in 2017 in Hebrew by Shiri Shapira. And Sechs Koffer, or their Six Suitcases, 2018 in German and 2021 in Hebrew by Noah Cole. And his latest book, Mama Odessa, 2023 in German and hopefully soon in Hebrew. So welcome, Maxim, and thank you for joining us. And I want to start immediately by asking about the Mama in Mama Odessa. And chapter 5 in Mama Odessa opens with talking about the Mama and saying, Mama was born to be a writer, but she started too late to really become one. So I'm going to use this quote, and we'll get back to the mother soon, but about beginnings of writing. When is it too late to become a writer?
I'm sure that when you turn 65, 70, I mean, there have been examples, but still, it's too late because, first of all, naturally, you have not enough time to write all the books you could have written if you would have started when you're 25. And of course, you don't have the time also to develop something, because being a writer, this is why when you said I'm a musician, and I even I've now published a book with photographs. No, I'm only a writer. Why am I a writer? Because my whole life became more and more, the center of my life became, in a painful way, being a writer. You live it. You don't only work as a writer, you live it. And this long period is very important, I guess, to become a writer. So when you start in the age of 65, in the age of 70, you don't have the time to be young, to be naive, to be megalomanian, to be humble, to be pissed at everybody, to be happy, to say to yourself, I'm not going to accept any award, to accept an award, to be angry about yourself that you accept an award, and so on and so on and so on. This is why it's too late when you're 65 and or 70.
I understand. I really wanted to use this to ask you when you started, but also I'm sure there were many beginnings to when you started writing. But you said something in your answer now that I want to ask first. And you said it became painfully clear that I was a writer, or it through pain I became a writer. Can you talk about writing and pain the way you mean?
Do you want me to become personal?
Yes, of course. Of
I
course.
was joking. Of course, I will. How else can I answer this
What
question?
else? What option do we
No,
have?
no. What I did, I was sitting in my children's room from the age when I finally had one for myself, in the age of 13, 12. And I was bored. And I did this and that. I was doing mixtapes. I was listening to like loud music. I was sitting in the window and smoking. I was writing even in Czech first, a children's magazine with a friend of mine who stayed in Prague. So we did like together and like 2 issues only. And
Mhm.
this was it. I was playing piano. I was playing a guitar. I was bored. I had nothing, like I had no ideas, I had no plans. I never wanted to become famous. I still don't like it. And I have a problem with artists who think that the most important goal is to become famous. I think this is the toxic thing. So, and then I started writing from time to time when I was so bored, a short story. And they were very, very bad. And I'm serious, and I say that they're very, very bad. Uh, then I go to university. I finish university. I'm like as I said before, it was me. I'm 22. I'm naive. I finished university when I'm 22. It's crazy in Germany, like my master then. I don't know what to do. So all of my friends are like in interesting schools, academies, film schools, schools for journalists. I tried to get to a journalism school just out of fun. They accept me. I start doing this. I continue writing sometimes a story. Mostly I start for magazines. And what I find out in these days, and I'm answering the question, only when I write a story for myself, I'm happy. And not even that I'm happy, I'm just not unhappy. And
Mhm.
I'm only happy like for a second when I finish it. Even the reaction of the people is not so important anymore. This is how it started. And if now I make it very quick, I read it. I work as a young journalist. Start like at the age of 24. I write short stories. Some guy finds out about me from a publishing house, good publishing house. He asks me to send him a short story for an anthology. I send him a short story. He says, "Send me more." I send him more. He says, "Let's do a book." I didn't plan this. This is all what I wanted to say.
So when you say painfully clear, it's as if you're saying I had no other real option. Of course, you had many options, but no real true inner option other than making myself happy for this one moment by writing the book.
Right. Exactly. That's how it is. So
And,
that's exactly. But
and
but living the life of a writer is extremely painful.
can we talk a little bit about that? Can we talk a little bit? So you write in many genres, I'll say, but again, I have a feeling that fiction is your main area of gravity. So
Absolutely.
what does your day look like even? You're saying it's very difficult, the life of a writer, and I know I write academic work, but writing is the
Oh,
worst. Writing is the
yeah,
worst.
no, I think academic writing is even worse.
But as far as
The
the kind of the in Yiddish you say Schwerkeit, the difficulty of being a writer. Can you talk a little bit about your kind of daily writing?
Yeah, it's very simple. I found out because I was very lazy. I was very bad at school. My parents didn't care. My father always said, "School is your job, and translating is my job, and being at university is your mother's job. So it's your thing." So they never asked me about what was happening at school. So I could be very, very lazy until almost the end of the studies. Then I found out if I will continue being lazy, it doesn't work. And I did the normal thing. I started getting up early in the morning. I found out that the best thing I do is in the morning, like the best pages. And this is what I do until now. I get up, I work for 2, 3 hours, I go for early lunch like a Chinese monk. I go back, I even rewrite a little bit, or I answer bloody emails, and
Mhm.
then I go for a swim, and then I watch TV shows, and I don't read. So this is also very good. Yes.
You don't read anything.
I read, but I don't read. Like I'm not the guy who sits down in a suit at his table and starts reading Walter Benjamin, who I
Hmm.
despise, by the way. Um, no, it's just actually I have this the suspicion that I only read before I go to sleep, like for half an hour, for 15 minutes.
To help you fall asleep, maybe.
Yeah, of course. No, it helps me not only to fall asleep, but to clean the the computer desk. It's
Hmm.
like getting somewhere else. Of course, I do read sometimes. I do a lot of magazines, and if in the New Yorker there's a short story, I will start reading it. Mostly, I finish like after one page because they're always so boring. And okay, in holidays I read, but I'm not a reader, and I think, by the way, that writers should not read too much. I think
Hmm.
they're very important because then you lose your own voice.
I understand. You talk a lot about boredom. Even now, when you said how you started writing, you were bored.
Yes,
A newly arrived
yes.
Czech boy in Germany.
Mhm.
I'm sure like social circles are a thing, not yet fully formed. So a lot of time for yourself. But also you talk about being bored reading. How does boredom, and I think boredom is very important, right? People aren't bored enough nowadays
I
with
agree.
phones and social media.
Mhm.
And now I sound old. Um, but what's the importance of boredom for you?
Um, Look, I could like invent now some theories, but there's one
Hmm.
practical moment which I've also found out. I found out a very important thing when I was when I understood that I have to do something to finish my studies and to like write my papers and so on. I'm sitting at the table, and of course, what do I want to do? Escape.
Something else.
I need to write. I have no idea what to write. I try to understand what it is I'm going to write about. It's so complicated. I'm thinking about how writing the complicated thing down in an easy way so that other people would understand. Too complicated. So I could run. And then I found out just don't leave the table.
Hmm.
Keep sitting on your tuches, and you will sit there 10 minutes, half an hour, and then you get so bored that you start writing. So this is like the core of this whole thing. But of course, for kids, for teenagers, for twins, of course, it's great because if you're bored and if you are a person who um, has some creative potential and also the character to do this, very important,
Hmm.
and the will, then you will have a chance to find out something about your talents. Maybe this is also, I'm just thinking, this is one of the reasons why in Germany, for sure, I don't know how it is in Israel, I observe it a little bit in the States, literature became so shallow. These people were never bored, as you said. They never really suffered like this, the pain of, again, of this metaphysical boredom, because they're always distracted. And only when you, sorry,
I have a feeling this has to do a little bit with this trend of mindfulness. I don't know how strong mindfulness as a trend is in Germany right
I
now.
don't know what the word means even.
Well, I don't practice it, but I hear that it's about being mindful and kind of being in the moment and whatnot. And I think that has a connection to boredom, kind of trying to be not out of distractions, without
Yeah,
distractions.
but it sounds to me like it's too esoterical. It's like it sounds like yoga. No, no,
Yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah. No,
no, no.
not
Sorry.
preaching it. I'm just
Yeah, yeah, I
thinking
understand.
about
No,
boredom
I
and
think it's
mindfulness.
different. I think it's like a really like almost a mechanical thing. If you're bored, you will do something not to be bored.
Yes. And if you have talent and a will, it might be writing.
It can be music. I have musician friends, musicians, and they had the same experience when they were this age, but like with music, for example.
I think creativity and boredom have a lot to do with each other.
Yeah.
I think emptying something in order to
Mhm.
find. But you said that when you started writing at a young age, and I'm going back to the beginning, but really I want to ask about languages and about what in Yiddish you would call Mameloschen or Muttersprache or mother tongue. Now, immigration and mother tongues get tangled all the
Mhm.
time. And for
Yeah.
Jews, mother tongue is an issue all the time, right? Because you have the Jewish languages and then the languages of the places where Jews lived.
Mhm.
So I'd like to ask also about your beginnings of writing in Czech and you're a German writer, I would say, or the results are in. Um, what's your relationship to kind of this multiplicity of languages, these multiple languages you have, and these beginnings with Czech and moving into German?
Okay, I will love to answer this question. If I will be too long, please interrupt me.
Yes.
First of all, I just heard on the radio, on
It
German
won't be too
radio.
long for me, I'll just say, because this is my favorite topic. I'm a scholar of translation, and translation
Uh,
and multilingualism is my favorite
uh,
thing.
okay, but the people are listening to us. Maybe they
Maybe,
will get it. So
maybe.
let's think about them too. First of all, I heard on the radio right now that like actually it's totally normal in parts of Africa that like kids grow up with six languages. So we shouldn't be showing off too much with our Jewish multilingualism.
Okay.
This was a joke. So my parents came from Soviet Union to Prague. I was born in Prague. My sister was born in Moscow.
Hmm.
At home, it was like this. We spoke with my parents Russian. Uh, in kindergarten and school, we spoke Czech. This is like the 60s. My father, who was a translator,
Hmm.
who was not only a nice person, but mostly he was. Um, Now we have the bells from the only beautiful church I'm living at in Berlin. We just use them as like, um, do you hear them, the bells?
I can't hear them. I can hear them.
Even better. Okay, okay, they are
What
very
what
heavy,
what what
boyish
church is
bells.
this? What church is it?
Zionskirche,
Yeah.
Zionskirche.
Hmm.
This was
I
one of the
recognize it. I recognize Zionskirche from your books.
right. This is one of the churches where in during World War II, there was a pastor. He was who was fighting the Nazis, and also here started was one of the places where the revolution against the communists started in '89. By chance, I got here. So I grew up with two languages. My father's a translator, is a dictator, and he says, "You speak to your sister, speak to your brother in Czech. Fine, at home, whatever. If you speak to us, if you address us, only in Russian, don't mix languages." This was the most important thing I think I got from here. If you don't know a word, you speak Russian to me. You don't know a word in Russian, never use a Czech word. Either ask me, and
Hmm.
I asked him, I think, 3,000 times, 10,000 times. I asked him about words and he will get never impatient. Or, which I found even more interesting, describe it.
With other words.
You can describe every word with other words. And this is how it started. So I went to school for 4 years in Prague. I'm sure I wrote with my sister, who is now also a writer living in England, writing in English. Her name is Elena Lapin. Um, we had like we had a club with a club diary, and we wrote things in the diary. So we wrote a little bit in Czech. Then we ran from the communists to Germany. I still live a life actually of a Czech Russian boy. Interestingly enough, my Russian improves because it's harder for me now to mix up Czech and Russian because there's no Czech outside. There's only Czech with my sister, and then I write a little bit in Czech. Like I try to like put out my own children's magazine, and I still don't write in German. I have German school. I don't read in German. My father tells me, listen, you don't know how to read and write in Russian. I will not torture you with writing, but at least learn reading. So
Hmm.
he gave me Feuchtwanger, the Jewish War, and other books in Russian. So I read Feuchtwanger in Russian to learn reading in Russian. And then around 15, I started reading German, Karl May, which is like this.
Hmm. Yeah, I read it in Hebrew as a
Okay,
kid.
okay. And I still remember how I tried to convince my teacher of German literature what a great writer Karl May is. And
And
I was sure that I was right. And he said,
no, it's kid stuff.
so, and this is how I got into it. And then I'm 16, 17, and this is when I start writing German for myself, just for fun. And then I don't want to repeat myself. Now, I do it in German, but I don't feel safe writing in German the minute I'm abroad. I like German is the language I know best, passive, active, but it disappears. Very quickly I become insecure, and even one thing happened to me. I was in Prague. I stayed there for a couple of months, and I wrote there a story. Two things happened. It was much lighter. The tone was much lighter. I was much closer to the Czech uh, sound sound of Czech literature, which is
Hmm.
always lighter. There's always some not irony. There's now the word I don't know. I say it in German. Maybe you know it because you seem to know
Okay.
very well Yiddish. Heiterkeit.
Oh, I'm
I
not
I
sure.
can't look it up because we're talking on this
Okay,
thing.
okay, we'll figure it out later.
Okay, and but when I got home and wanted to edit it, I saw I made mistakes which I wouldn't have made if I would have written it in Germany.
So there's a connection for you between your language and geography, very
Also,
much
yes,
so. But
yes,
that's very interesting, Maxim, because for me, when I think about Maxim Biller's world geographically, it's rooted in German language and in a way in Germany, but actually it's all of the swath from Germany to Eastern Europe, and then kind of Israel is also part of this map, but also the United States and sometimes London. Your world is, in a way, geography blends. People move not fluidly because of communism, Stalinism, and whatnot, but there's it's very there aren't borders in a sense. Your world is kind of very fluid.
yeah. I think this is the world of the actually of the Jews of the 20th century. I don't know
But
how
for
it
you,
is.
you're saying here, my German is in Germany, or feels my German feels best at home. I write German the best when I'm on German
Right,
soil. That's a very
right.
interesting thing.
Not when I'm on German soil. When I'm surrounded by German, it's
Mm,
a different.
mm,
And
mm,
I also I'm not very I don't really feel pleasant among Germans. Almost all
mhm.
my friends are Jews, or like one friend is a Baha'i. It's
Hmm.
very hard for me to have German friends. So it's not the soil, it's not the mentality, it's only the presence of the language. And the funny thing is, yes, it seems like I read so much about different like things happen in so many different places. But in the end, I was always in Oblomov. I hated to travel. I hated to go, and but it happened to me somehow. Somehow it happened. But I think actually uh, there are a few writers who I like. There's only one writer who I adore. I like very much Isaac Singer, and my phone is now on five of his books so that you can see me. And he did the same. It was the United States, it was New York, it was Poland, it was South America. When he went on a tour, it's this not being connected to a or Israel also, he not being connected like in Germany Günter Grass, or in the United States who would it be, like a typical Don DeLillo. It's it's a very Jewish thing to do, to
But
live like this.
you talk about this immersion in language, and here, let's think about Bashevis or Yiddish literature. Immersion within the language. First of all, there was never a Yiddish land, right? We have the Pale of Settlement. Yiddish was there, or Yiddish was everywhere Jews were. But immersing yourself in Yiddish is became less and less of an option with the Holocaust and whatnot. And kind of this idea of surrounding yourself with the language, but not feeling at home within the people is a very interesting idea. I think it has to do, of course, with immigration or with being a, I don't know, would you say you're the son of immigrants or the son of refugees?
No, I'm not immigrants, absolutely not. Emigrants.
Immigrants.
This is
Or
for me.
refugees, maybe, refugees of communism. Because I think this is a very and there's a beautiful book by Kadia Molodowski, Von Lublin bis New York, or from Lublin to New York. It's about this young girl who moves, and um, there's this part there in Yiddish where she says to be a refugee, a Flüchtling, is f from being kind of like garbage,
No, no, no,
verflucht.
no, no. It's not. At least until this day, what is it? May 16th, 25,
18th, May 18th,
19.
25.
Until this day, I don't feel like a refugee. I'm the son of immigrants,
Hmm.
which means I got somewhere and I got there not happy, sometimes also happy, safe. I'm safe.
Yes.
A refugee is not safe. But to explain like what's going on with like to talk a little bit, if I may, about what's going on in the books. Um, you will ask me, I suppose, things too about my last novel, Mama Odessa. But there's one novel which I wrote, which was published in 2001, and it's called The Daughter.
Hmm.
And it was translated to many languages, but not to Hebrew.
Unfortunately.
And yeah, but I can explain you what I
Hmm.
not explain you. I can tell you what I think. Why? The hero of this book is a young Israeli guy who commits a terrible war crime in the first Lebanon war with his best friend. And he's traumatized by that. I mean, this is before wars with Bashir, a couple of years. He's traumatized by that. He wants to go to India, meets on the plane a German woman who's very quiet and not like there's nothing Israeli or Jewish in her temperament. They fall in love, and he becomes, yeah, what, an immigrant to Germany, to Munich. He starts a life with her. She's cold. They have a child. And now he's even more unhappy. And his trauma doesn't go away. And he be, be, starts loving his daughter more than he should. Okay, and I will not. It's a very pornographic. It's a very tragic story. So you have my German experience in this book, and you have my Israel experience in this book. I even met one man who was in the. He lived here around the corner, also on Siatskirchplatz, and he told me about the first Lebanon war where he was, which traumatized me. So I told him maybe I never had found anybody who could like double check if what it's described if this is authentic. He read it. He said it's very much so authentic. So it worked out. But Israel was not ready for that book for this book then.
You pitched it to publishers and it wasn't picked up.
No.
Well, this is a call out here to all publishers
Oh
or
no,
anybody listening.
no, no, no,
Please
no,
pick it up because
no.
because I'm saying that the three books that we do have of yours in Hebrew are all kind of, well, starting in 2015, so kind of this last decade. You've been writing for since 19 since the late 80s, right? So we're behind. But I'd really like to talk a little bit about Mama Odessa and maybe start by asking you no, I want to read the first sentence of this book because um I think it's important. It has to do with secrets in a way. The book starts like this, and I'll read the English translation that I got. In May 1987, when I was 26 years old, my mother wrote me a letter on an old Russian typewriter, but never sent it. And I think this happens a lot in your books. These kind of letters that get lost or aren't sent or are discovered later. These documents that um, someone knows about them but don't know where they are. We have this in Sechs Koffer, in Six Suitcases, Shesh Mizvadot. We have this in other places. But this idea of a letter, and then this later gets explicated, and you read it through it, and or the character, sorry, reads through it. I'm going to have this slippage, and I'd love to talk later about
Everybody
uh,
does, even I do.
autofiction. But what's this thing with secrets or with things that are written but never sent, kind of behind the screen?
I can tell you because I can pretty well trace it without a psychologist, because I only went once to a psychologist because
One time?
my girlfriend, she was from Israel. She wanted me desperately to go to psychologist. And I thought, let's do it because otherwise I can't have sex anymore. So I did it. And I sat there, and this woman who was Jewish, she said, you know why we're doing this? I know, look at me. I also had many problems and I did it myself. And this was very helpful to me. And I looked at her, I said, doesn't seem so. And I left. So she was a crazy woman. I mean, you could see it. This was like, however, um,
My
what
wife is a psychologist, but
oh,
okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's
Whatever
okay.
her name is. Um, so did it start? I'm pretty sure it started with two things in my life. When I was a kid, I heard one day that my grandfather was executed by the Bolsheviks,
Hmm.
by Khrushchev's people, in a
Hmm.
time when they even that didn't do this much. I didn't know more. This was all I knew. The other thing I knew was that my uncle, my father's closest brother, who came also from in the 40s from Prague, from Moscow to Prague, because it was before 48, it was like going to the West, and they had Czechoslovakian papers, but this is another story. He goes there, he lives there, and I loved him, but he was not the smartest one, and he planned to escape by plane via Belgrade,
Hmm.
Yugoslavia. There was
Yeah,
like
there's traces, or very much this is the story of six suitcases.
right. No, this is why I'm getting. This is how it all started, and then I will get there. I tried to be very fast, and I couldn't connect. No, I didn't. No, I found I didn't know enough. Like, why was the uncle so dumb? Why did he get to prison? What happened to my grandfather? And started asking my parents. My father wouldn't say a word. I only very much later found out that his very often cruel uh, character, which was actually not cruel at all, was because of they killed his father. And he was one of these people from the last century who wouldn't talk about things when they were hurt. And about the uncle, I remember even how he came home. No, how he came to us because he didn't have home anymore after a couple of years of prison. And I started asking around in the family, and I asked more and more and more. And by this, I began to understand that not only in my family there is a secret, which I won't find out, but in other families. And actually, yeah, as a son of my mother, I don't trust anybody anyway.
What do you mean by as a son of my mother, I don't trust
My mother
anyone?
didn't trust people. I don't trust people. I know that almost everybody is unsincere if when he talks to you, how he behaves, and of course, I'm the only one who is sincere. Not to forget,
Of course.
of course. I hope that everybody understands this was a joke, but actually, I try. And this is how the question of what is true got into my head and then into my literature. And for this, I can use tools like letters which weren't sent. And if I may, either you ask something or I can immediately make a connection to this first sentence.
Yes.
My mother dies. And of course, like everybody, I'm very, very desperate. And something goes on and something goes on, and I
How long
find it.
ago is this?
My mother died in 2019, 18. And I feel that I have to write something about it. And not as I always do for myself, not to be published. And I think about an essay. I read a little bit essays of other, so many essays of writers about their mothers. And I always, because I'm a bad reader anyway, after 3 pages, I stop. It's always too sentimental.
They're boring.
Yeah, it's too sentimental. Because when you write about your mother, you can't write that she was like also had like dark parts in her character.
One should
And
not speak badly about the dead.
right, but in literature, they're not people
Everything's
anymore.
fair. But also you like to poke a little bit.
What do you mean spoke?
Yeah, the name of this event in the festival is the Great Provocateur. So
Ah,
that's something
yes,
in the
yes,
name of truth or in the name of I don't
yes,
know anything else, provocations and kind of telling
yes.
saying the look, this is actually different than what you think and whatnot is something that you do a lot.
Yes, I do a lot because I really think it, because of course I think that most people are very, very happy not to lose, to not to leave their the place in their head where they live. Okay, people. Okay, I make it short. The comfort, the intellectual comfort zone, or
Hmm.
the political comfort zone. They don't want it. I understand it because I'm a rabbi too, so I know their problem. But when a young writer asks me, another young writer, because still feeling young, what should I do? How should I do it? I say I have no idea, but I have only one advice for you: write only the things you know that your family and your friends don't want them to be written. That's it. And not for the sake of provocation. Trust me. But then you open doors. And when you
Right.
open doors, it gets interesting.
Yes, that's the opposite of boredom. It's also, and maybe there's something here about interest, something interesting and something painful going together, right?
Right?
Because pain is, well, I don't want to say pain is always interesting, but mm, um, pain in people becomes interesting.
Just to finish the one thing, because I always try to get back to like conversations where
Hmm.
you get lost are not professional. So I sit there. I have no idea. I know that there was a letter by my grandfather to me,
Hmm.
not by mother to me. That my mother read it to me once or twice because it was in Russian in
In
my
handwriting.
grandfather's handwriting. I have no idea where this letter is. And suddenly I understand I have to write not a fiction piece. And this is how it starts. So things twist, and this is how the first sentence suddenly happens to me. They happen to me, these things. I'm not a conceptual writer. So
Right.
this is how I get from fact to fiction.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful first sentence, if I may say so, because it also has the year, your age, but also Russian. So kind of this multilingual aspect of your life or of the character's life is already there because the Russian typewriter is kind of a relic of the past, like this letter of the Russian past. And I want to talk about this mo mother who was born to be a writer. In chapter 5, and this is something I really wanted to discuss altogether in your writing, but specifically with Mama Odessa. And we'll get back to it. But um, you write about the mother that she couldn't make things up. Uh, and this is how it goes. I'm sure that everything else in the story was also real. This is in chapter 5. My mother could never make things up when writing. At most, she could sometimes keep something unmentioned. And I'll continue reading the chapter, but I want to talk about this idea of writing the truth, but also not mentioning everything. For example, her fits of rage, rare, but all the more furious as a result, when she could no longer ignore something unpleasant, or the many lovers that her frivolous, melancholy father, handsome Yakov Gaikovich Kaczmarian, used to have, or her own strange relationship with Lassik Stein, one of my father's oldest friends, thanks to whom we ended up in Hamburg instead of Tel Aviv or Beersheba. So first of all, I like this idea, and we'll get back to it, of counterfactuals. You could have been in Tel Aviv or in Beersheba, Maxim Biller. But we'll get back to counterfactuals in a second. Can you talk a bit about this kind of relationship between not making things up? Because there's a feeling that I have when reading your work that everything is true, but then I know as a literary scholar that nothing is true. This is all fiction, but you play with us.
I think every writer, not every, but many writers,
Some more than others, you more than others,
yes,
maybe.
I agree. I agree. Yes, yes. Um, what I don't know what to say. This actually, I love to talk a lot, but in this case, I can't say much. There is my real life. There's my real experience. There is very often an idea for a story which comes from real life. And then I started, and then suddenly people always say language gets me somewhere. No, my thoughts, my fantasy brings me somewhere else. I
Hmm.
start with like facts and go to fiction. And during writing the fiction, I of course may also sometimes remember again some facts, and again I play with them. It's like it's old man would say it's like a jazz improvisation on reality. Like the tune, the melody in the beginning. This is what then the band improvises on, and this is
Right.
what I do.
You
This is what I
riff.
do. My riff, right? And this is what I do. And why people think that I'm more like closer to reality than the others, if I may like give myself a compliment, because they believe it more than books of other people. Because so many things you read, you just think, yeah, well written. It's only literature. There needs to be some connection like to our life. It's not a ritual literature. It's action. This is what I feel. Maybe like this.
And about this kind of counterfactual, well, all literature is counterfactual. What could have been in another life, in another way. That's what's fun, kind of, I think you're saying also, starting with something that happened, but then riffing on it and moving
Mm-hmm.
on. But this idea of kind of, I could have been in Beersheba, I could have been in Tel
Yeah.
Aviv. Yeah, your world is also in London and in the US. There are many people who are in the US in your books. Kind
Mm-hmm.
of this idea of maybe the contingency of human experience that comes through with all of these counterfactuals. You like playing with alternative reality.
Yes, because the reality is boring, either because it's boring or because it's so much so crazy that you wouldn't believe it. I have the title of one Norman Mailer book is Advertisement for Myself. So I follow this other like semi-idol of mine. Um, my most important book, my most interesting book, which was never translated to any other language,
Oh, wow.
has almost 1,000 pages. It's called Biography.
The
And
one before Mama Odessa.
yes, and I always had this dream to write a satirical, tragical novel. Like my big idols are, see, I do read Joseph Heller, Good as Gold, and the Adventures of the Brave Soldier Schweik, which you
Mhm.
can read, unfortunately, only in Czech. These are the two books. And Mordecai Richler, Saint Urban Swordsman, a Canadian Jewish writer, not Philip Roth. Please, please never tell me that I'm like Philip Roth. So, um, and I have my best friend is a completely crazy guy. He's wonderful. He has a big heart, but he has a lot of issues. And I always wanted to write a book about him and me. And we are both from Buchach,
Oh,
like our
Buchach.
families, yes,
Like
like
Agnon, like Shai
and
Agnon.
and like Wiesenthal. And we found out that we're both our families are from Buchach. Not we were born not in Buchach. When we found out, we found understood even more why we are so connected like brothers.
Hmm.
And then I begin to write a thing which I think is like 100 pages, then it's 300 pages, and then it's like 1,200 pages. In the end, I had to even to cut it. The story is one guy, like the how do you say this in English? The one who's more or less like the one character who's like my real friend. His name is Noah. I say Noah Folani. He is from a rich family. He wants to get rid of his money. He wants to save the world, and he wants to get rid of his wife. And he has no idea how to do it. His
Any of the
best
things.
any of the thing. His best friend is a writer obsessed with sex. They're both obsessed with sex. Noah likes only to wrestle with blonde German or African women. And the, the other character, I forgot his name even, he was almost seduced by his sister, so he had his own issue. Now the story starts. It goes of many continents. Noah, who's the more interesting character, has the idea to go to Sudan to fake an abduction by the terrorists there, by the Janjaweed, to shoot a movie where they chop his head to be finally freed. Meanwhile, he gives all his money to charity. The other guy, like now I say me because I really don't remember his name. The writer. Thank you. The writer has to run away from Germany because he has a problem because of like a pornography Me Too thing, which is not true, but he still thinks they're just after him, like Woody Allen. Yes, I'm paranoid, but it's not my fault because they're really after him. The whole trip goes America, Berlin, Prague, Africa, and it all ends, they meet in Buchach. And the last chapter is them sitting in Buchach on the stairs of the Philharmonical of the concert hall, and they listen to Schoenberg's beautiful thing, which is in German, Verklärte Nacht. And only then the hysterical, pornographical, Jewish, funny book becomes very, very quiet. And when you read it, you read 3 times a page. You laugh 3 times a page. So I know that this was an answer to your question about, about counterfaction. There can't be more counterfaction, like especially what I told you about Noah Fulani. He's a kid, my friend is a kid from a wealthy Frankfurt Jewish family who went to Israel, and now he has a family there. So this is what happens. It's so simple. And I think every writer who doesn't do it like this is crazy. He's losing his time.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So one of the counterfactuals our time is almost running out, but I want to ask about Odessa, of course, as a counterfactual, because the book is called Mama Odessa, and it's all about this family that comes from Odessa with a similar kind of trajectory to your family, but your family is obviously not from Odessa. So what's the importance of Odessa for you? And I'll just share a small story. I taught a course on Hebrew and Yiddish literature at the Hebrew University when the war broke out between Russia and the Ukraine. And
when Russia attacked Ukraine.
When Russia attacked Ukraine, I'll be more specific. And I wanted to make sure that every week there was a Ukrainian writer on the syllabus because I wanted to talk about Ukraine the whole semester. And I didn't have to change 1 week of the syllabus. That means already all of the writers that I was discussing, Hebrew and Yiddish, every week I had a writer from the Ukraine, from what is now the Ukraine, Odessa, Lvov, Kiev, and etc. So Ukraine is so central to kind of Jewish culture. So and Odessa is such a multilingual port city, so important. What made you kind of locate Odessa as the focal point of this book?
I can tell you very precisely. For me, Odessa was only a name for dozens of years. And then I was invited to Odessa. And you must know that after we emigrated from Russia, I never had the chance to talk to somebody in Russian, except for my parents or some friends of theirs. And then, like 2018, 2019, suddenly I'm in a city where everybody speaks Russian. And everybody speaks my Russian. Because, of course, the Russian of the Jews is a little bit different than the Russian of the Russians. It's the same thing with German, for example. So I felt in a very surreal and real way at home. And I thought, oh my God, another home. How many homes can I have? This is too much. Tel Aviv, Odessa, Prague. Munich, which I love, where I lived for 20 years, even Berlin, which I hate. It used to be Manhattan. It was home. Cut. Then I start thinking about this mother book, and I think, no, why? No, I don't want them again. This family to be from Moscow. It's boring. They were in so many books. They were from Moscow. I
Right.
thought, I take Odessa, and I didn't take in account that a couple of years later, people in Odessa will stop speaking Russian, because it was like a Russian speaking city, not a Russian, and things will, because of the war, become completely different. This is how I got into it, and even I did the same with this book, which I did with the book about the Israeli with the daughter. I asked somebody to read it from Odessa, a Russian-speaking Jewish guy, and I said, "Is this authentic?" And he said, "Yes." So this I'm fine with. But this is how it happened. I just wanted to change something. And
Hmm.
it was very interesting, by the way, because this is how I found out things. I don't know how much you could read. There's one chapter. There was a big epidemic
Epidemic, yeah.
in Odessa in the 70s. It was brought by the ships from China. I forgot what it was. And I saw it because I watched a Russian film called Odessa, a
Mm.
fiction film. And there was this Sunday, there was this historical event, and it fit perfect to like how to the end, which I was planning. That they almost didn't leave because ships didn't go out, and so on and so on.
Mm.
So again, this is how you write. It's like you play piano and you go somewhere here, and you here go there. You improvise.
Right. No, I look forward to reading the whole thing when it comes out in English and hopefully in Hebrew. I misspoke and said when the war broke out between Russia and the
Oh, you
Ukraine.
don't have to apologize.
No, 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 but it does bring me to another thing I'd like to discuss while we
Okay.
still have time, and that is the role of a writer as a public intellectual.
Yes.
You, as we said, write in many genres and in Zeitungen and whatnot,
Mm,
newspapers.
mm.
And can you tell me something about what you think, first of all, today in Germany, the role of literature is? If literature does have a role nowadays, I think you think the answer is yes. And also what your role as a public intellectual
No.
is in matters such as kind of a war breaking out, and
Okay.
what, yeah.
Just tell me how many, I'm serious, how many minutes do I have for this answer? Because then I will adjust to the time.
5 minutes, I think, and
Oh my
then
God, this is too long. Okay. So, no, literature doesn't play a role in Germany these days.
okay.
Doesn't. Has a lot also to do with book talkers, bullshit, and with digital problems, which you have everywhere. But even before, the German literature was always very, very provincial, period. Let me not explain this. So it was for them only like to sometimes to look in a mirror, which has not foam, which is like uh, um, when you
Oh, fogged up mirror.
yes, this is they don't see more and they don't want to see more. This is for them. German literature, German books are fogged up mirrors. Was it different in the 60s, 70s with the big names like Böll, Heinrich Böll, Goethe Grass, Peter Handke, then some was. Yes, it was.
Hmm.
Because the books, some are better, some were worse, were literature, but they very much, they dealt with the present, but even more with the past. And even when they were lying in these books, like in a bad way, like I have no Heinrich Böll, for example. I love Heinrich Böll's books, stories from the 40s, 50s about the time, the war. They are like, in a good way, like Hemingway stories. One problem: there are no Jews. The German soldier only suffers because he has to go to war, and I believe him. He had to go to war. He suffered, but he still shot from time to time somebody. Why don't I read it there? And
Hmm.
still, this meant they talked about the reality, about politics. They wanted to create a new society, and still they were able to write fiction which was not an activist fiction. At the same time, they wrote essays, they signed some petitions, whatever. So they had this role, some of them, especially Günter Grass and Heinrich Böll, like political figures. And this was great. Gone. Also, because the atmosphere in Germany was very much the intellectual, influenced by the pre-war intellectual atmosphere. There were immigrants coming back, Jewish. There were English and American press officers. There were even Germans who went like to school with Jewish kids and picked up something. This was all there. So this disappeared too. And now it's a different time than 10 years ago. It might change, but now we are in a time more or less where the Germans are with themselves. And as I said before, they only look in this fucked up mirror.
But you feel otherwise and you
Yeah,
act
and now, yeah,
otherwise.
there are one, two, three, four who sometimes write a political essay. They're always boring left wing, and they always say what like their peers think. This is boring. I am afraid that I'm very Jewish in my writing, my political writing. So when they are still like my last big essay was uh, about there is a discussion. We have a right-wing party here, the AfD, and it gets more and more votes.
Yes, we've been following.
Yeah, but I try. I'm a journalist also a little bit, so I
Hmm.
want to explain. Whenever it comes to in a discussion about should they be banned, should they be banned by the by law, most of the people, like of course they don't like it anyway, but most of, even of the liberals left say, oh no, we have to we have to fight them with better politics, and I think it's crap. So I write a big essay in which I say this, which, and I try to prove why the only way to get rid of them is, of course, to ban them. There's one man, one journalist. His name is, you will forget the name, but because I want to be fair, his name is Heribert Prantl. He's one of the big figures of German, he's an older guy, German journalism. And he also says this. But otherwise,
You're the only
everybody's
two.
more or less
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
on this highest level, more or less. Essay is published, nobody talks about it. Months ago, suddenly our what is it? Would it be Shin Bet says they are all right wing, and they just say they are right wing. We have all that. We did for 4 or 5 years. We were looking into this with even with agents. Was looking what they're saying. They are a fascist party, a right wing. I don't know what the word fascist. And suddenly we have a discussion, a serious discussion about should they be banned by law.
Hmm.
So I don't know if somebody read my essay in Süddeutsche Zeitung because there was no reaction at all. But I know that I did, like, I had an idea before others had this idea because my Jewish head gave me the answer to this question,
Right,
should it
right.
be or should it be not? I really don't want to sound like a show off, really not. It's just,
No,
it,
but what you're saying is, Maxime, and this is very interesting to me. When you write fiction, you're writing for one person, for yourself. And if we
I,
read it, okay. But when you're writing this public intellectual work for the newspapers, you are writing for people. You want them to
absolutely,
read. Yes,
absolutely. Yes,
yes.
yes. I
And that's
can't
maybe
add
the
more.
the role. Yeah. Well, our time is almost up, so I want to ask quick questions because I have many questions left, but I'll do some quick hitters and then we're gonna um keep the rest for next
No,
time.
you get now like one sentence per question. I promise.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask you mentioned several times you have one writer you idolize. Who is that?
Isaac Babel.
Isaac Babel. Odessa. What have you read recently that you liked?
Um, the Man from London. I think this is the title, by Georges Simenon. And
Hmm.
I didn't want to read Simenon for 50 years. I found him so boring. And suddenly I'm also a Simenonian.
And also wrote something, a book about saying goodbye to the mother.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. It was just translated into Hebrew. You should look it up.
Okay, thank you.
What's your next book that you're going to read that's up on your kind of nightstand?
Um, Book by a friend, a scholar, about Thomas Mann and his
Mm,
activism and his hidden Zionism.
okay, okay. And two last questions. What's your next writing, what's your next book idea?
Okay, to be honest, I have three manuscripts already. I have delivered them,
Oh, wow.
and they have to be edited. And I became more and more like this, like old tango player who only likes to sit somewhere and play. I wrote these things. I really have no idea how I will edit them. This is so boring. I don't want to do this. I just don't want to do this. So actually, I'm afraid I will have no time to write, but I will have to take time for editing.
Okay. And my last question, because you said that reading is boring, but r you watch movies and TV shows, what have you seen lately that was specifically of interest?
I can't tell you exactly. I started watching TV shows very early, the good
Mhm.
ones, when they made TV shows only like for people like you and me and not like for the nice, good, normal people. And I'm not able to find anything. They have so many shows now about rich people, and it's disgusting. I started watching again The Killing,
Hmm.
and I'm just the whole day is only structured so that I have time for two or three episodes every evening.
Okay, so you write as much and as fast as you can so you can get to the killing.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank you, Maxime. There's so much more that we could discuss, but that will be a counterfactual future. I want to thank you for
No,
opening
it's factual. Will be factual.
factual.
We'll
Okay,
meet
okay.
again. I
Mirza
promise.
Hashem. Thank you very much for your time and for this conversation. Mama Odessa, new book out in 2023 and three manuscripts on the way. Um, I'm happy that we had the chance to open the festival together. Basically, this is going to air tomorrow, but this is
Oh, great.
pre-festival. And everyone watching is welcome to join other events in the festival. Toda rabba.
Toda rabba.